Sure. Hello, people. It has been a good couple of years since I did a video like this. Mainly because the server died, but you know these things happen. You know these things happen. So anyway, Season 8, I don't know how the fuck we've made it here, given it looked like the series was on life support in Series 7. But it turns out all you need to get a series going is to bring back a batshit Hungarian who's mentally insane. So there you go. Now, he's doing his media bollocks. And this isn't related to the video. This, now mainly it's already out of date because Drake aren't in it. I got my predictions in. I updated it. Gonna explain it based on what I'm seeing. Now, one thing that should be noted: I am an ex-commentator of the series, which means that none of these predictions will be right. I guarantee you some absolute we're just gonna see something absolutely ridiculous and somehow fucking I don't know Pannonia are gonna win the title in their first year, like fucking Bourne style or some dumb shit. I don't even know. This is also implying that the engine works well. I do know that there was already one bug related to Titan, so that doesn't fill me with confidence. But regardless, 14 teams are in. Drake basically came out like yesterday, so everyone was doing their predictions, trying to figure out where the fuck like everyone comes, and then Drake yesterday literally just come out of nowhere, announced a team, and they've got a full lineup. So everyone's predictions are now out of date. We got 14 teams on the grid as far as I'm aware, and of those 14 teams, one team is gonna have to come in last place. And I'm pretty sure everybody put them, like everyone that wasn't rage baiting. Like Leon put Blayhard and a lot of rage baiting. Rotal Motors. Now. Yes, they do have a returning team principal. The bad news is it's Nikolai, which is not good. Also, the thing in the background, visual stimulant. I wasn't really doing anything on it because I was kind of bringing up the hub on my phone. But yeah, this is just here so people have something to look at while the video goes on. There is also a non-zero possibility that the game crashes. It has a habit of doing that. But regardless, Votal, listen, buddy, yeah. This feels a bit like HRT in 2010. They kind of just rocked up out of nowhere at the last minute, and they don't really have any talent, or money, or anything. Their lineup is, well, to put it nicely, shit. Jordi Azcona, who, I'm trying to remember what the fuck, I'm pretty sure this fucker was it either Vote or Bergen way back in the day. He didn't do anything. Maybe he had some success in, I think he may have gone to ITCL since. Yuri Kuznetsov, who a gun to my head, I genuinely couldn't recall anything he's done in any season ever. And Amir Iskander, who was, like, one of my ex-endurance drivers, but he's now 42, washed to fuck and rated at a 3 out of 10. So they don't really have a lineup. All of their drivers are people who either were in WTCL and weren't very good, or in Iskander's case, completely washed. The car they were given is the Seat. Now, the Seat is very reliable, but in terms of one lap pace, yeah, we're not really expecting a whole lot out of this thing. So basically, the car's not going to be very quick, and the driver lineup isn't really going to be able to maximize its potential. So basically, the only chance they have of doing anything this year is either some absolute fucking miracle happens, or by some divine miracle, everyone just blows up and they somehow get points based off that. But I'm expecting a season of struggle for Votal. I would genuinely be shocked if they even get a top 5 finish this year. Like, that car looks awful. Maybe they could fluke it in, like, an endurance race or something like that. But, yeah, I do not see them doing anything. In 13th place, for my predictions, I'm just switching over back to Discord on my phone, and it decided to not load in that instant. So that was fun. In 13th place, I went with Astra. Now, the good news, well, not even good news, the news from Astra is they've got the Honda. which in terms of pace is probably slightly better than the Seat, but it hasn't really got that kind of elite reliability to kind of carry it towards where the BMW and Alphas are expected to be. Astra also don't have a very good lineup, like, at all. Sid van der Linde, who was kind of around back in the day, but he never really did a whole lot of note. He had a bit of success in ITCL, but at the top level, he doesn't really have what it takes. But he might be able to get a decent drive or two out of that car. Leonardo Pastor in the second seat, gotta be honest, I've genuinely never heard of him. I don't know if he's like one of the newer drivers that got added like a few seasons back, but I've never heard of him. And they've got Rupert Christensen in the endurance seat, who I'm pretty sure used to be an endurance driver in ITCL. And he was kind of midfield, so I'm not expecting him to do anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's one of the weaker endurance drivers on the grid. They have a lineup of people who are mostly ITCL quality. The car is expected to be probably the worst overall when you factor in reliability and pace. I'm pretty sure that's actually what I did in my sheet. So yeah, not a very competitive lineup, not a very competitive car. They might get a decent result or two here and there, like Sid van der Linde is fine, although admittedly he is now 33. But Christensen isn't going to do anything in the endurance races. I've never heard of who the fuck Leonardo Pastor is. And yeah, they'll probably be fighting it out with Rotor and the next team in my predictions for last place. And I do think the bottom three in this are like a notable step down from the teams above. Like if I'm picking my predictions, the bottom three I think can kind of go in any order. Because Rotor I think are going to be clearly last. I think this team and Astra are going to fight it out for 12th, and then I think those three will be a bit of a jump behind the rest. Because in 12th place, I'm going with Redline. Redline come to this grid, and to be fair, on paper, they have got a decent car in the Chevrolet, which I'm expecting to be kind of around 3rd place in terms of performance. I think it'll be, in terms of pace, I think it'll be better. Like, if we're talking overall, when you factor in pace and reliability, I think it's going to be slightly better than the Seat, and I do think it'll be better than the Honda. The only issue, really, for Redline, despite all this, is instead of being able to get a good mid-table lineup going, they have got arguably the worst lineup on the grid. In the first seat, we have Italian Emanuele Avellino, a driver I have never heard of, but he comes to the grid with a 5 rating, which automatically makes him one of the weakest drivers on the grid. You have Astrid Skegerstad in the second seat, who I can only ever recall because she used to get memed on for just how fucking shit she was. Which is, you know, not a good look going into your season. And then you have Lance Witherspoon, who's literally rated a 2 and is washed to fuck and wasn't even particularly good in the second division, even at his prime. So overall, they have a, at best, lower end second division lineup. And whilst I do think their car might be able to scrape them ahead of Astra, I could easily see those two flipping. But I do think they will be safely clear of Rotor come the end of the season at worst. But overall, I just don't really see Redline doing anything. The car might have potential to make them a decent outfit, but when you look at the other teams in the midfield and the lineups that those guys have got, I really just cannot see them doing anything in comparison. Maybe the car could fluke a decent result, but overall, I don't see this working out for them, unfortunately. Maybe if they improve the lineup for Season 9, they could be good, but yeah, I'm not expecting anything. In 11th place, and this is why I do think we get more into the midfield and lower midfield, and it could all get a little bit confusing from here. In 11th place, I have decided to go with one of two new teams for this grid, and that is Pannonia. Pannonia are obviously ran by the man, the myth, the legend, Capo himself, who is basically the only reason that this thing is still going. Obviously brought back from the dead. Pannonia come into the season with the Honda, which I'm not massively sold on as a car, but they've got it. They're going to be alongside Astra in that car, and also Shogun. In terms of the lineup that they are going for, Pannonia have gone for an interesting couple of drivers. They've gone for 2 veterans in the full-time seat, and they've also acquired a loanee in the endurance. In their first seat is Laszlo Jarbo. Jarbo was pretty shit back in the day, but if I recall correctly, he had some moderate amount of success in ITCL, but at 36, he's not exactly going to be improving, and I don't think he's going to be a particularly good fit for this division. Louis Cordova is in the other seat. He might not be at his prime anymore, being 38 years of age, but he has a very established pedigree, and I do believe is a multiple-time race winner in WTCL. He's driven for some of the best teams, And I think he can get some good results out of that car if they are able to improve on the not hopeless foundation that the Honda has, but it's not exactly great. In the endurance seat, they have young Roland Holzer on loan from Stoffel, and to be fair, given he's young and improving, he should be able to get some decent results in endurance. Overall, though, they don't really have what I think is a higher end car to really get them out of the lower midfield. And while I think Louis Cordova can get some good drives, and I think Holzer can do well in the endurance, I do think Laszlo Jarvo is going to slightly hold them back from pushing higher up the midfield. But I wouldn't be shocked if they were able to push higher, especially if Cordova does roll back the years with some of his performances. Overall, they're not a bad team, but I just don't think there's really anything exciting here. They're a solid outfit who have probably the worst car on the grid, and whilst they do have some potential in their lineup, it's not exactly a standout either. There's definitely potential for Pannonia going into the season, but I think it'll be a season in the lower midfield. In 10th place, we have a former champion of the series. I'm pretty sure it was Season 2. We have Drake Racing, who came out of nowhere. They're going to be driving the Chevrolet, which I do think can be a solid midfield car. And in terms of their lineups, they are going with a bit of an interesting last-minute selection. In the first seat, Buddy Darmawan. I've never been massively sold on Darmawan as a driver, but he has at times shown glimpses of why he's always been highly rated in the sheet. Although he is down to a 6 this year, it's worth noting. Linda Rodel in the other seat is a solid enough top-tier driver. I don't think she's anything special, in fact I'm pretty sure she was in the second division, but if I recall correctly, she was pretty solid. Fernandino Corleone is a bit of a disappointing pick for the endurance, given how he's washed up and hasn't really achieved anything of note for years. So while I am concerned about their driver lineup, I do think that Darmawan can get some solid drives out of it, and I do think Linda Rodel could potentially do something. They also have a better car than Pannonia, which I do ultimately think could be a difference maker despite the slightly weaker lineup, but I wouldn't be shocked if these two teams swapped back and forth. So there you go. Overall, Drake have a solid car, but I don't really think they have the lineup to make the most out of it. In 9th place, we have my team, Blehar. Now, coming into the season, they have gone with, well, I've gone with the Seat. Simply because it's reliable. However, you're going to trade that off for the lack of one-lap pace. In terms of the lineup that Blehar bring to the grid, they've gone for a bit of an interesting selection. Patrick Zerman may be a little bit older at 34, but he has been around in the top flight, and he was doing pretty well in ITCL. In fact, I'm pretty sure he was in the title conversation one year down there. And at 34, he'll bring some good experience. John Harrison has always been rated highly as a talent, despite being passed around more often than fucking, I don't even know, like a prostitute. My brain is cooked. And at 22 has been loaned in for the season. And this is definitely a chance for him to show what he can do at the highest level. As for Vincenzo Guardi, I'm pretty sure, I actually looked into this, he was doing some solid stuff in the second division. And at 22 he should improve, although it could definitely be a bit of a rough season for him in the endurance. Albeit, he is definitely solid. Overall, Blehar will be at probably in around where Drake and Pannonia are this season. Zerman and Harrison should be a solid enough full-time lineup, and I do think it's more balanced than what Drake and Pannonia have. And in terms of the endurance, I do favour Guardi over Corleone, although I can definitely see Holzer beating out him. But overall, I think the Seat is the only real concern is whether or not the Seat has the pace to keep it ahead of Drake, but I do think at worst Blehar will be 10th, and they will come ahead of Pannonia. Moving on into the top 8, and a bit like the bottom 3, I think there's a little bit of a jump here. We're moving on to Shogun. Shogun at one point looked like they were building something in WTCL, but now it looks like they've gone back to a rebuild. They have the Honda, which I'm not expecting to be anything good, and that does also mean I'm thinking they're going to come highest out of the 3 Honda teams, which isn't really a hot take when they're up against Astra. So anyway, as for what they're up to this season, Shogun come into the year with a interesting lineup. Osten Lingvis, who as I've mentioned is one of the best drivers ever, Dolot Yavetsky, who's continued to improve, and while GQ is nothing special, he's absolutely fine as an endurance driver. The main concern I have for them going forward is that they're not massively sold on the Honda. I do think it's probably the weakest out of the 5 cars, and although they could definitely improve it to get higher up the grid, I just don't really think that despite their solid lineup that the car is going to be good enough to get them really any higher than the midfield. Particularly, I don't think they'll have any chance of competing with anyone in an Alpha or a BMW. They could maybe sneak higher up if the car is less bad than I expect, particularly as their lineup's not exactly bad, but yeah, they don't. Austin Lindqvist is also 38, so potentially he could decline this year. And that added in with the concern around the car makes me think that it's not really going to be the year for Shogun. They might pick up a decent result here and there and maybe even get a win. But overall, it's not going to be a particularly exciting season. They'll be minding their business in the midfield. They'll get the odd good result here and there, probably with Lindqvist rolling back the years. But apart from that, nothing really to see here. In 7th place, we move on to Leakenthorpe, who are somehow still around. Leakenthorpe come into the season and they have decided to go with the Chevrolet, which means that I think they are going to do best out of the 3 Chevrolet cars. Although when your competition is Drake and Redline, I don't know how much that is saying. As mentioned, I do think the Chevrolet legitimately has midfield potential, and Leakenthorpe bring about an interesting lineup. Kim Win-Jae's endurance, I'm not even going to mention because he's fucking awful. But Pal Balajin, when he's not being Pal Balaspin, is that meme still relevant? Season 3 people? Well, no. And Jerome Mathers, who obviously has been a very successful driver at the highest level. Leakenthorpe do definitely have a good full-time lineup, but I do think Win-Jae's endurance is pretty weak, and I don't really think the Chevrolet has the ability to go toe-to-toe with the Alfa and the BMW. So as a result of that, I do think that they will be pushing maybe for some decent results, and if they can improve upon the car, they definitely could crack higher up than 7th. But I just think Win-Jae and a car that I don't see really being anywhere near as good as the top 2 means that their ceiling is probably going to be towards the top of the midfield, fighting it out with Shogun. In 6th place, I've gone with Valkyrie. Now, Valkyrie come into the season as the first of the Alfa Romeo cars, and they'll be driving in the Alfa Romeos alongside Rauner and Stoffel. Valkyrie, I have no real recollection of, they might have been a Season 2 team, but regardless, they come into the year with a not amazing lineup. Kenneth Lim is a driver of all time. Roman Lichtsteiner has definitely shown his ability over the years, but he has been exposed at the highest level. And I don't even know who your endurance driver is, but it's someone called Anastasia Kovalenko, who is weighted at a 6. So I guess she's okay. Lim is also somehow a 7 by some divine miracle. So overall, your lineup may actually be not half bad. But I just don't really think there's anything special here in terms of the lineup to really get the most out of the Alfa. I do think you'll probably still be higher up the grid, purely due to the fact that I think the Alfa and the BMW are clearly the top 2 cars. But overall, I just don't really see this lineup standing out. And while I think you'll have some good results here and there, unless Lichtsteiner or Lim really put together a really good season, I just don't really see you being in the title picture. In 5th place, we're going with Rango. And this is where we start talking about the 3 BMW teams, who I think are easily the best car this year. And the 3 BMW teams are going to be Platinum, Esther, and Ranger. Ranger, however, are mainly let down not due to the car, but by their pretty not good lineup that's also particularly old. Cordell Savo in the first seat is not awful. Hayley Turner, however, is 41. Hayley Knight is 41. And let's be fair, she's probably going to start declining soon. And Sarah Rosebacken, despite being a lovable mother, is not a particularly good driver, and she'll probably struggle in the endurance this year. While I do think the BMW can get good results for them, I just don't think that Savo or Knight are good enough at this level, particularly with where they're going to be in that car, to really challenge anyone of note. I think you'll probably be fighting it out with Valkyrie for 6th and 5th place respectively. In 4th place, we're going with Rauner. Now, putting any faith in Rauner is typically a bad mistake, and knowing Rauner, they could easily just do absolutely nothing for no explainable reason and end up in 9th place, because that's just how their history goes. As for the car, they have picked up the Alfa Romeo as mentioned, and I do think the Alfa Romeo can absolutely pose to be a good car. In terms of the lineup that Rauner bring, well, they may have been had a slight controversy around the contract situation, but Rauner do come to the grid with Bruno Firmino and Manon Dion. Bruno Firmino is a driver who has been hit or miss in WTCL, but on his day he can absolutely hang with the best. And Manon Dion has absolutely shown multiple times that she is a very, very quick driver. My main concern is with the endurance driver. Carlos Ramirez is not exactly anything special, even in ITCL, so he's a bit of a sore thumb in this lineup, and I do ultimately think he is going to hold them back from potentially fighting up at the top end of the table. But overall, I think they can have a very successful season, particularly in the full-time, But I just think that with the Alfa Romeo not being as quick as the BMW and Carlos Ramirez not being that good, I do think they are going to falter in a potential title challenge. Now we get on to the big three, and I do think these three teams will probably be quite a way clear of the rest, or at least on paper. And in third place, I'm going with WTCL's generational bottlers, Stoffel. Stoffel have always hinted that this is the year. They usually have money, and they usually have a good lineup. But unfortunately, they've never won the title, although they have achieved a best result of second. They come into the season picking the Alfa over the BMW, though that may have been due to the bidding war. Amara Perez and Ezio is a very top driver. Ezio de Bonaventura, while slightly older now, is still a very top driver. And Danka Crow is absolutely an incredible pick for the endurance. In fact, I've always highly rated Danka Crow, and she has put in some very good drives. So there is no doubt in my mind that Stoffel will have easily one of the best, if not the best, driver lineups on the grid. The only concern is that I just don't think the Alfa is going to be as good as the BMW. And although they could improve it, I just ultimately think that they are going to not have the car to really get involved in the title scrap. Though I could see them jumping the team that I've got in second place, and they were predicted to win the title, but I have backed out of that after a late decision driver change, and so in second place, I've gone with Platinum. Now, Platinum may write an actual essay anytime they need to discuss their team, but they are actually pretty solid going into the year. I expect the BMW to be the best car on the grid, and obviously, as we know, Platinum has done it all at the highest level. In terms of the lineup that they bring for this year, I'm not 100% sold on it, but it should be fine. Mariette Boucher, after a rough start in WTCL, has emerged into a top-tier driver, and Sebastian Goldschmidt is one of the highest-rated talents, as is Mikael Jensen, who I do think should have a very good season in the endurance, albeit he is still a little bit rough around the edges, being only 20 years of age. While I do think that the lack of anyone... The main reason for not picking Platinum for the title is just that I don't think they have anyone outside of Boucher who can really carry them to a title. Goldschmidt and Jensen are good, but whether they can step up at their young ages and whether they are on paper rating, I don't know. Although looking at Boucher, she should easily be the best driver on the grid. But that leads me on to my title pick, and it's Esther. I actually originally didn't pick Esther, but then they got rid of Vivek Singh, and I immediately did a 180. They have the BMW, and they have one of the better lineups on the grid. S.A. Munat and Kaisuke Nomura are two high-level drivers. Andre Bavenu is a high-level driver, and he's in the endurance seat. So yeah, there's no real weakness in the driver lineup. Maybe you could point to the fact that Munat, Bavenu and Nomura are all in their mid-30s and could potentially decline, but typically decline doesn't really happen until a couple of years later. They have the best car, they have a very well-rounded lineup, and there's no real reason they shouldn't be at least in the title picture. I think if Esther don't finish inside the top two, I will consider this a failure for their season. So there you go, that is all 14 teams for the season and my predictions. And if you disagree, then I'm sorry, you are just objectively wrong. Anything I say is objectively correct. Goodbye.